A vagrant named Nick suddenly makes a discovery in the Arctic wilderness. On the ice not far away, a faint golden light is flashing. Curious, he walks over, following the glow, and is horrified to discover that a frozen human hand is stuck inside the ice. The golden light is coming from a large gold ring on the hand. Realizing that it might belong to a wealthy person who once fell into the icy water, Nick immediately grabs an ice axe and starts smashing the ice. The next moment, a frozen corpse slowly emerges. But to his great disappointment, aside from the gold ring, there are no other valuable items on the body. Just as Nick takes off the ring and prepares to head home, he notices something else ahead. Lying quietly on the ice is a black briefcase. Sensing that something is wrong, he hurriedly pulls it out of the water. What he finds inside shocks him to the core. The case is filled with a full $2 million. Looking closer, he also realizes there is a crashed airplane hidden beneath the ice. Although he knows this money is probably ill-gotten, faced with such a fortune falling into his lap, he can't bring himself to walk away. Nick rushes back to his camp. Staring at this sudden windfall, he decides that the very next day he will leave with the money, disappear far away, and completely change his life. But what he doesn't know is that a terrifying danger is quietly closing in. The next day, as Nick drags the heavy briefcase across the ice, preparing to leave, he accidentally runs into a police officer who is investigating the area. Seeing Nick acting suspiciously, the female officer asks what he is doing there. Nick lies, saying he is fishing. However, the officer notices the black briefcase and doesn't believe his story at all. She assumes he is a dangerous criminal and decides to take him back to the station for questioning. At that very moment, a black SUV slowly approaches. Several masked men jump out before the officer can react. Their leader throws a gun on the ground and threatens them, demanding to know the location of the crashed plane. The officer is completely confused, but the gang leader quickly loses patience. Seeing that the officer is in grave danger, Nick suddenly rams into the leader, and a fierce gunfight breaks out. The officer hurriedly hides in her car and floors the gas pedal to escape. Nick jumps into the police car as well, but the gang doesn't let them go easily. One of them climbs onto the moving car, and a brutal fight erupts. In a critical moment, Nick kicks the attacker off the vehicle. However, the briefcase is also knocked loose and slides across the ice before plunging into the freezing lake below. Watching Nick and the officer escape into the distance, the gang leader is furious and orders his men to hunt them down. The money originally belonged to the gang. They had stolen it and planned to transport it overseas by helicopter. Unfortunately, extreme weather caused the aircraft to crash into the lake. Inside the wrecked plane were more than a dozen briefcases full of cash. Now, the gang not only wants the location of the plane, but also intends to kill Nick and the officer to silence them. Meanwhile, the officer calls for backup and heads toward the shore with Nick. But the car suddenly breaks down at the worst possible moment. With no other choice, they abandon the vehicle and flee on foot across the ice. To prevent Nick from escaping, the officer ties a rope around him as they continue towards safety. The gang soon finds the abandoned car.